What's up, guys? It's time to review a Cronenberg classic that will really get under your skin. Let's review Dead Ringers. Dead Ringers stars Jeremy Irons, Genevieve Bujold, and is directed by David Cronenberg. What's up, guys? It's time to do a patron request, and I love doing patron requests because a lot of times these are movies I haven't seen. And if it wasn't for my awesome patrons, I probably would have never even bothered because I'd never even heard of Dead Ringers, honestly. But one of my patrons, Cassie Hart, she requested I do Dead Ringers. And this movie looks really interesting. As soon as I heard that Cronenberg directed this, then that really piqued my interest because, you know, Cronenberg's one of those really eccentric horror directors. He really thinks outside the box. He is every bit as good of a director as, you know, like our mainstream directors like Kubrick, Spielberg. He has something to say behind the camera. You know, he's one of those directors that's not afraid to push the envelope and make the viewer feel uncomfortable. I think nobody does it better than Cronenberg. And he could take a movie that's not even necessarily a horror movie and still really make you feel uncomfortable. Like Eastern Promises is a great example. He's just one of those directors that deals with violence in a very realistic way. And I guess that's just a hard thing to capture on camera, but he manages to pull it off very well. Quick plot synopsis. This is kind of a medical thriller where you have these two doctors. They are twins, both played by Jeremy Irons, of course. And both these doctors are gynecologists. They treat women for fertility problems, and they're really the best in the business. And they happen to be very different from each other. And you'll notice that as you're watching this. Jeremy Irons' performance in this movie is like one of the better horror performances that I think I've ever seen. He just has a way of capturing a character and making it his own. And when you're capturing not one but two characters, then it really gets interesting. And one thing I noticed about this movie is, like, a lot of times when they do twins in movies, they will dress them differently so that way the viewer can tell who's who. And there is a little bit of that in this, but you know, there are a lot of scenes where they're dressed very similar, especially with the hairstyles, but you can still tell who's who because of the performance of Jeremy Irons. He is just that strong of an actor in this. And it's not that often that we get to witness acting at this caliber. You know, you can tell that this is an actor that really honed into this craft, took it very seriously. And sometimes, you know, actors, they go so far that it can cause like physical damage to them after. I mean, there's a few examples of that, like Alex Wolff from Hereditary, Heath Ledger. I mean, it took his life. But, you know, we're left with these performances that are just mesmerizing. Behind the scenes, I know Jeremy Irons actually had two dressing rooms to play these two parts, but he got so confused with it that eventually he ended up going to one dressing room and just kind of figuring it out in his head. You know, I like that when actors, they're willing to explore how to play the character, not just who the character is. You know, what would be the best approach to dealing with this character. But to break down these two characters, one of them, Elliot, is the more put together, the more sophisticated, the more confident of the two. And then you got Beverly, who is very eccentric. He's still highly intelligent, but he definitely is more introverted. And, you know, you can easily tell the difference between these two characters. And then along comes this actress. Now, this is where it gets interesting, too, because the character Elliot, he's kind of a douchebag. And he will date these women, and once he gets tired of the women, he will pass them on to Beverly, which is kind of weird. And so he does that with Claire, and then for a while, Claire thinks Beverly is Elliot, but eventually she realizes that it is actually Beverly, and she falls for Beverly. So one thing about this movie is, like, I didn't know where this story was going to go. You know, it was more of like just a fly on the wall, watching these two eccentric characters basically live their day-to-day life, you know, and it's not a life like yours and mine. You know, these are highly intelligent doctors. The way they live their lives is pretty strange. You know, they're very eccentric characters. But I kind of dug that about this, not knowing where this story was going to go. I knew that because these characters were so different, that it was going to get weird. And it definitely gets weird throughout this movie. This movie also explores those characteristics that twins have of like syncing with each other. Beverly, he becomes a drug addict in the movie. And so Elliot, he cares for his brother and he wants to fix him. So the way he does it is he becomes a drug addict and syncs himself up to his brother to try to pull him back out of it. And that was a very interesting way to deal with drug addiction. Never seen that before. Only twins could do that, I guess. Not gonna say if it works or not, but you could probably guess. And I can't not mention the tools that Beverly makes. The guy is so crazy that he actually thinks Claire's a mutant because she has 3 cervixes. And that's just weird. But he creates these tools that look like, mutilation tools, very dangerous. And he actually uses them on just a random patient in the movie. And that is probably one of the most uncomfortable scenes in the movie, actually. What you women have to put up with when you go to a gynecologist with your legs all up in the stirrup and everything, it's probably not that fun. And when a thriller explores that profession, it can get pretty shaky. And it does. Now, as far as any cons, it's a Cronenberg movie. And some people are not going to be able to stomach Cronenberg movies. He's just even like his more high profile films like The Fly. The Fly has some very uncomfortable, disturbing scenes. This is one of those types of films, and it's more of like a character study than anything. So it is kind of a slow burn throughout, although I was highly interested in what Jeremy Irons was able to pull off in this movie. It was jaw-dropping, some of the scenes he did. The guy just has a range like you wouldn't believe. And I think, there's a lot of scenes where you see both characters in the same frame, and it's Jeremy Irons, but he's such an effective actor that sometimes you even forget. And keep in mind, and as an actor, you're acting off of nobody. So he's having to play 2 different parts, probably at 2 different times, and then they got to marry it all up. And because of the caliber of an actor that Jeremy Irons is, it comes off seamlessly. So I'm definitely going to give this movie a purchase worthy. I mean, really for the acting alone and for the directing. I mean, it's beautifully directed by David Cronenberg. So guys, let me know in the comments your thoughts on Dead Ringers. Looking forward to hearing them. Thank you, Cassie Hart, for recommending this one. I actually bought it, added it to my collection. Also, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day. And on Fridays, we do Free For All Fridays. Follow me at Drumdums on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and Drumdum out.